Hmm? Ah!
The king can do as he likes.
The Mad King did as he liked. Has your Uncle Jamie ever told you what happened to him?
No one threatens his grace in the presence of the King's Guard.
I'm not threatening the king, sir. I am educating my nephew. Braun, the next time Sir Merwin speaks, kill him. That was a threat. See the difference?
Hey everybody, and welcome to our podcast. I'm Lord Sterling, Sir Duncan, wielder of the axe Charlene, the cherry red Stratocaster.
And I'm Lady Kristen of House McWegglebergino, ruler of caffeine and whiskey, archenemy of peace and quiet.
Yes, this metal. And this is Game of Microphones, episode 56.
On this episode of our series, Rewatch, we are covering Game of Thrones Season 2, Episode 4, Garden of Bones.
And just for anybody who is not already aware, this is a spoiler-filled podcast, so we are covering the series in a rewatch from the perspective of someone who's current on the show, which means that you've seen up through Season 7, Episode 7. So this is your spoiler warning, people.
Warning.
Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert.
Spoilers. It's like from Scooby-Doo.
I'll have to sample that and use that. So let's jump into our top 5 highlights of Game of Thrones Season 2, Episode 4, Garden of Bones. You want to start?
Sure.
All right.
So I was saying earlier that I have lots of notes about today's tonight's episode, this week's episode, and kind of a shaky, fluid top 5. So it's not going to go in any particular order. It's just kind of be like kind of how I'm feeling the conversation is going.
It's going to be an adventure. That's awesome.
It's going to be a choose your own adventure. So I think I'll start from the beginning, and that is with Robb Stark. So we open on this show, and it's of these Lannister fighters who are kind of jockeying back and forth and teasing each other about the different kings and whatnot, and all
it's
of a
really
sudden,
funny.
They hear something. What do they hear? It's Grey Wind, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, that was really funny. One of my favorite lines is when he's like, Loras has been stabbing Renly for a couple of years now, or over and over, and he's still alive. So how good is he?
Yeah, that's I have that written down
hilarious.
too. It was the best.
But a lot of this thought process actually started this morning when I was looking at our listener feedback, and somebody had mentioned wanting to see Robb more of a fighter.
Right.
It would have been cool to see him fighting more. And I thought about Robb as a fighter, and what was interesting to me was that he didn't fight a lot. I mean, it was talked about, but he was either in his tent, or he was being a strategist, or he was sitting on his horse. He has very little blood spatter on him after this particular battle. And I thought about his relative and kind of counterpart through this whole series. We like to do a lot of comparisons of Robb and Jon.
Jon Snow.
And Jon is exactly the opposite, right? I mean, he leads by doing. He's first one on the battlefield, and he's first one willing to die, and that's his leadership style. And we know what a hard warrior he is at this point. And I just don't think that there's really we never really got to see Robb fight. And we never got to see if he was, in fact, a warrior. We saw that he had a brilliant mind for war, but he was still a little kid. And you see that kind of in the beginning of when we meet Talisa after the battle. And he he's so driven by revenge that he doesn't even have a plan for what happens when he wins this thing.
Right, that's crazy. That really hit me when during this rewatch when Talisa said that. Like, you want to just kill this king and overthrow a kingdom, but you don't have a plan for after it? Like, what are you thinking, man?
And he's letting everybody call him Your Grace, and he has no interest in being a king. He just wants to be left alone. And it's like, okay, well, if you want to be left alone, then you should stay in the north. And if they come and fight you, that's where you should fight them, is in the north. But now you're on their turf. So if you're on their it just, the whole thing, it was just really strange. You know, how he has no like broader scope of what he's doing.
How he explains his goals here. We just know Joffrey has to die. That's all we know.
Right. That's it. Joffrey has to die. He's first on my list, and he's first on my sister's list. So,
yeah.
But yeah. So he says to Roose Bolton, he says he won't give Joffrey an excuse to abuse his sisters, right? Saying that he doesn't want to torture prisoners, right? He doesn't want to torture and kill them.
Yeah, because Roose Bolton here is just horrible, and he's talking about, you know, obviously his sigil is the flayed man. He's got like an upside down man flayed on an X-shaped
who has no secrets.
Things. Yeah, exactly. So he says a naked man has few secrets, a flayed man none. And that guy's
so scary.
Yeah, he's right up there with the Ironborn in terms of just like horrible people.
Yeah, maybe worse.
Yeah, Bolton's in the Ironborn.
But when he says that, I thought to myself, this was a late note for me as well, was that if you're giving Joffrey an excuse to abuse your sisters when you go into battle. I mean, you're killing Lannister people right and left. You think that Joffrey is just sitting on his throne, like wringing his hands?
Yeah, seriously. Yeah, like you said, they're killing Lannister soldiers left and right. It's a 5-to-1 death ratio, according to Roose Bolton here. So that's going to piss off Joffrey, too. He can start sending pieces of Sansa in a box, for all we know. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like Ramsay does with Theon.
So yeah, I know. So with Robb, it's funny because, you know, you want to love him so much, especially because he's a Stark and he fights with honor and he's trying to right a massive wrong
and he's gallant
in his family.
And, you know.
But he has no vision at the same time. And it's an interesting I don't know. It's just an interesting concept to kind of take in when you're on multiple watches with the show. Interestingly,
also, comparing Robb with Jon, Robb ends up falling in love with Talisa, and it compromises his whole battle strategy and ruins his entire plan because of it, right? Because he chooses Talisa over the mission. Jon ends up falling in love with Ygritte, but he ends up choosing the mission over Ygritte and abandoning the wildlings and fulfilling his duty as a Night's Watchman. So that's another way that they sort of branch off in separate ways from each other.
That's a nice point.
Yeah, they're both kind of like seduced by romance at some point, but eventually react differently and end up having different levels of commitment to their individual duties, you know?
Absolutely. Totally.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I just thought of that.
I like that. I like it when you have the big aha moments like mid-podcast.
Yeah, those are always the best.
Yeah.
You realize something really cool mid-conversation.
You're like, wait a minute, I'm just thinking about this right now and it's brilliant, so everybody shut up.
Talisa was a cool character too, her intro. The way that she's telling Robb like how it is, no holds barred, being honest to him, whereas, you know, largely people in power like this are surrounded by yes men. And I'm sure he is to some extent as well. I mean, at first the great Jon stood up to him, but I think everybody's pretty much fallen in line with him at this point. Maybe not. Actually, there was some contention recently in the camp, I think, but
Grey Wind took care of that.
Yeah, definitely. He took care of that. But yeah, Talisa is just like, you know, stupidly didn't write down a lot of what she said, and I'm forgetting. I thought I would be able to remember it, but she's pointing out that this kid, fights for the Lannisters, but he had nothing to do with Robb's father's death.
He was a fisherman's son. Do you think he's friends with Joffrey? Do you think that? Yeah,
he probably never held a spear before, just a couple months ago, when he was scooped up to be in the army. And there's a couple really cool moments between them where he's like, well, he was lucky you're here, and she's like,
he was unlucky you were.
Yeah, cool things like that. So he respects her because she isn't just a pushover, and
she stood up to Roose too.
And he's just watching her as she's totally just cutting off that dude's leg, and he's like, wow, she is a badass.
That sawing sound was rough.
Yeah. Oh man. And then no like painkillers or anything. It didn't seem like she had a big jug of milk of the poppy that she was carrying around or anything like that. Did you notice anything like that?
No, but
he just has him bite the rag.
Robb Stark was really nice, and he shoved a dirty rag in his mouth. So
it'd be better than biting your tongue. Yeah, that was so funny. Oh yeah.
So that was my number 5. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was looking through the Patreon rewatch earlier, and I saw that Avellino mentioned that seeing Robb and Talisa in this scene was painful, knowing what happens coming up. So I'd have to agree with that. This is not going to end well.
I agree. Yeah. And I really liked her too as a character.
Yeah, me too. So that was actually my number 5 too, is the intro scene and the whole Robb's Grey Wind ambush and the aftermath. So yeah, I think we covered that pretty well.
Yeah, absolutely.
You want to go to your number 4?
Do you want to go to your number 4 since you didn't get to introduce anything? I can go to my number.
I'm feeling left out. Fine, I'll go with mine.
Okay.
So my number 4 is the Shadow Baby and Stannis and Melisandre's ideological contradictions. So just to set the scene, figure out what's going on here. Stannis and Renly meet to treat, right? And things are not going well. Stannis is basically saying, hey, the kingdom is mine by right. And Renly's like, you got no friends, you got no power, nobody respects you.
Idiot.
Nobody thinks you're a king. Yeah, total jerk. And Stannis is even like, listen, it's mine by right, I'll make you my heir. Just stand down and stop being a dick or I'll destroy you. So there's...
I love the modern day conversation that they're having right now.
Yeah. I thought it'd be fun to improvise that.
You're a dick. No, you're a dick.
No, you're a dick, bro. What does mine say?
You're a dick, Holmes.
Yeah. G. So then it cuts to, we're on Stannis' ship later, and he's talking with Davos, and they're talking about his knuckle bones, and I love anything relating to Davos' knuckle bones is gold. Gold material, right? So he's asking him if his knuckle bones bring him luck, and he's like, God, just weirds me out that you wear them around your neck, dude. And Davos is like, it reminds me of where I came from and where I am now, and reminds me of your justice, and he's like, well, what good has it resulted in? And he's like, I have 4 less fingernails to clean,
Fewer.
Exactly. fewer fingernails. I just love Stannis, the grammar Nazi, the Manus. He's so good.
Stannis the Manus.
Yeah, the Manus. You've heard that before, right?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
In my home, many times.
Nice. Yeah, man, he cracks me up. It also just blows my mind that Stephen Delane, the actor, didn't really know what was going on and had no idea if he was playing the character right. I don't know how that happens, and he has regrets about the way he did it and everything, but I think that he nailed it. This is Stannis, man. He's the perfect Stannis.
And you know what? Stannis, and as a character, Stannis didn't care what was going on around him anyway.
Doesn't give a fuck. And it's perfectly illustrated in these scenes, too, because he's so stoic and rigid and standing there with his, back totally straight and his just gaze fixed on something in the distance and just never wavering, never like looking away. It's just like he's just singular in his ambition and in his posture, and it's Stannis. You know what I mean? Like he just nailed the Stannis role. So hopefully he someday realizes that he did a great job and he's not so hard on himself.
He needs to go to a couple cons.
Yeah,
he'll feel a lot better about himself.
Yeah, definitely. That's hilarious. So he's talking with Davos, and he mentions after they're talking about the knuckle bones, that a good act does not wash out the bad, and not the bad the good, right? So just because you've done some bad things, that doesn't cancel out all the good stuff you've done, and if you're a horrible person, doing some good stuff doesn't balance all that out or cancel all that out either. So people can be good and bad simultaneously and be commended and punished for whatever their deeds are, good or bad, or both, right? Mm-hmm. He raised Davos from a smuggler to a lord and simultaneously cut half his hand off, which is hilarious. And a really interesting way of looking at things. So then Davos is in the boat with Melisandre, and he, after he agrees to smuggle her to shore, when Stannis is like, "You still remember your smuggling ways?" Great little conversation. And she asks Davos, "Are you a good man, Davos?" And he's like, "I got mixed parts, bitch. I'm good. I'm bad. I'm the Onion Knight." And she's
I love the Onion Knight.
Yes. And she's like, an onion. If half an onion is black with rot, it's a rotten onion. A man is good or he is evil, and so you can tell that there's a disconnect early on between Melisandre and Stannis, between their different points of view here, whereas Stannis believes in gray and Melisandre is just black and white, and they're not really compatible ideologies. And I think it sort of hints at the future disconnect between the two, where it ends up being a failure, their combination. Which is pretty interesting. I just sort of thought of that right now too. Were you going to say something?
No, I was just thinking about you saying that Stannis believed in gray. Maybe just with Davos, but I think other than that, he's pretty black and white.
Yeah, it's true.
Just with how rigid he is. I don't know about that. I don't know. But I really don't. I mean, I think
it's so confusing now that you say that.
Well, I know. Because I think that Davos believes in gray, For sure. Davos believes in nuance, absolutely. And all he knows is the people that he serves, and he knows, right now it's Stannis, and that's his king, and that's his god, as he said in an earlier episode.
It's wild.
But, he's able to change his scope, and, he hates everything that Melisandre stands for.
But he loves everything that Stannis stands for. So they can't stand for the same thing, right?
Right. Oh, well, yes, absolutely. Well, he doesn't like the sorcery and the magic behind all of it until he needed it, right? He needed it for Jon.
For Jon, yeah.
Right? So he's like, "Listen, I hate you, you hate me, but we got an issue, and I need you to see if you can solve it."
Yeah. It's worth a shot, I guess.
Yeah.
Hail Mary.
But, going back to Stannis, I think a lot of his downfall is the fact that he believed so hard in this prophecy of him being the prince that was promised, and Azor Ahai, and having Lightbringer, and he just felt so entitled to everything as a result. He drank the Kool-Aid so deep, so hard, that he couldn't even have a simple conversation with his brother.
Yeah, he was out killing Sharon Tate, right?
Yeah. Yes. So Melisandre is Manson in this story?
Yeah. They both start with M. I'm onto something.
Yes. I think that was George R.R. Martin's original idea for the Melisandre character. Manson Sandra.
Yeah.
I'm sure one of our listeners will have an opinion on that.
Sure. I'm sure Sir Pete of Longwood.
Yeah. Sure, we'll get a nice little story on that.
Yeah.
It's funny because one of my points was also I called it the Baratheon showdown.
Oh, nice.
But going back to what you were talking about with the shadow baby, I love that line with Davos when he said, the Lord of Light only wants you to work in the shadows.
Right.
And Melisandre's like, shadows cannot live in the dark, Sir Davos. They are the servants of light.
Light creates shadows, yeah. So, it's bugged out.
I really, really liked that little exchange right there.
But you look at it differently, too, that darkness is the absence of light.
Yeah.
You don't need light. Like, shadows are only a small segment of darkness. They're just a little piece of the darkness that can still manage to creep through while there's light. But the true darkness is the absence of light. Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
This is a crazy scene. And she's so confident in herself too. She's like, she's like, I'm good, like almost taken aback by the question. I'm a champion of life and light. A knight myself of sorts.
Well, she drank her own Kool-Aid as well.
Yeah. Definitely she did.
But she's also getting payoff for what she believes in. I mean, she a shadow baby. A shadow baby.
Yeah, freaking shadow baby. With the face of Stannis, which we don't get to see in this episode. But how crazy is that, too? I love the moment where, this is great, Davos finds the bars, and he's like, oh, these bars are new, they're going to block our passage. And you can see Melisandre stripping in the background. Mm-hmm. And she's like, they can't bar our passage. And she turns around just like Buffalo Bill and in Silence of the Lambs, and the thing draping behind her.
Great reference.
It's all I could see was Buffalo Bill. He put the fucking lotion in the basket.
What was the song that was playing in the background with that?
Goodbye Horses by Q Lazarus.
Yep, you're right.
Should we do that as our intro?
Yes, absolutely. You read my mind.
Oh my god. Yeah.
I think Davos's reaction to watching the birth and watching the shadow baby come out of her is pretty much collectively what everybody was doing.
The way that Davos was reacting to Melisandre is the way everybody reacted to watching Buffalo Bill turn around in that same moment.
Right, exactly.
Hilarious. I'm going to make a side-by-side picture of the two. I started doing it already. Oh,
I believe it.
It's so funny. Yeah, that total Buffalo Bill tucked back vibe. I was just laughing hysterically watching it today when I made that connection. She's got the same posture. And Davos freaks out. And he sees that pregnant belly and he's just like, Gods protect us. What the hell is going on? She was totally skinny yesterday or even 20 minutes ago, probably. And he really great performance by Liam Cunningham here as his face contorts and he leans against the wall and drops to the ground in a sort of staggering discombobulated sort of way.
Yeah, so that's what I was talking about. The clinging the wall and the horrified face.
Okay. Yeah, right?
To
Isn't
me,
that great?
That right there, he very, very well-ly, that's not even a word. Very
excellently.
No words tonight.
Majestically.
Yes, he just did it very
perfect.
well. He he depicted exactly, I think, what my feelings were in an outward manner. Right?
Yeah, as instead of placenta or water breaking, you get this gaseous burst of black mist that comes out and disperses throughout the air, and you can just see the horror on his face as he's like, "What the fuck is happening?" I know. And these gnarly clawing fingers come out and grab her legs as the shadow demon wrenches itself from her womb. How insane is that?
When she never looked like she was in any pain. She looked like it was just the best experience of her life.
Yeah, it's crazy, man.
Yeah.
Shadow babies. This is also, this moment of the series, it's we got the birth of the dragons last season, right? And we've had a little bit of warging. This is the first time we see some fucked up magic shit happen. You know, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is like
sorcery.
this is like one of the transitions into the bizarre, you could say, where everything is kind of going along normally, and then all of a sudden there's a freaking shadow demon, mist, like black smoke monster that's in the shape of a human. Just it caught me off guard as a watcher. I was not expecting that to see that for the first time experiencing this story. So
Yes.
it's kind of a significant moment for like the way that the story transitions from being based in like medieval sort of reality to transitioning into like the typical like more like high fantasy climate or environment. You know what I mean? So this is like a big moment for that transition, which is wild to experience.
I agree. I 100% agree. It was it was definitely one of those moments where, you know, if somebody were to create like a top 10 list of OMG moments on Game of Thrones,
Right.
like this would crack the top 5.
Yeah, definitely crack the top 10. That's for sure. Wow, there's so many moments in this series. It's crazy.
That'd be a fun thing to do.
Okay, right now, just spur of the moment, what are your top 5 most shocking moments for the entire series?
Just right now.
Right now.
Okay. Well, Shadow Baby, but shocking. Well, okay. For the series or for the books?
The series, because we don't want to spoil people on the books.
Well, the only reason why I say the series or the books is because the Red Wedding was shocking. So the Red Wedding for me was shocking when I first read the book. So I felt like I knew what was coming when I watched the show. Does that make sense?
Yeah. But we can take events from both, but only ones that apply to the show.
Okay, so the Red Wedding is up there. Ned's death is another one.
Mm-hmm. Shadow Baby.
Probably when the Mountain killed Oberyn Martell.
Yep, that's on my top 5.
The breastfeeding.
You keep coming back to that. Cracks me up.
Because it's awful. Another one would probably be Hard Home. Watching all of those whites spill over the mountain. Right when they think that they've like created like some sort of a win at Hard Home, like they finally fought through a lot of it, and then they look up and they see that the White Walkers are all up there, and then all of a sudden they just start all cascading down.
Yeah, and then it's quiet for a couple seconds, then they start like building back up.
Well, I remember in that moment, I was all by myself, and I just sat there with my hands on my face, and I just remember uttering, without even thinking about it, I just spoke out loud, "This is unwinnable."
Nice.
Like, I just did not understand. So that was really shocking to me, that whole sequence. Absolutely. So what about you?
Mine top 5 would be Birth of the Dragons, Birth of the Shadow Baby, Oberyn Martell crushing the Red Viper's head, or the Mountain crushing the Viper's head, Lysa being pushed through the moon door.
Oh, yes.
And I don't know, I can't think of a 5th one right now. I guess Ned's death is just totally like earth-shattering. So
when I
that'd be up
read
there.
it, I thought I skipped a page.
When you read what? Ned's death?
When I read Ned's death, I thought I skipped a page.
Right. I think you talked about that recently. That's so
Yeah.
funny. You're like, what just happened? And your husband was in the room also,
Yeah.
right? And yeah.
I had never been so convinced that there was a glitch in my Nook.
He's like, oh, I know what you just read. Yep, it happened.
And he goes, no, that's what actually happened. I'll never forget it. I'll never, ever forget it. You know what another shocking moment is that wasn't in the books, but, you know, it is in the show because it's recent, was when that white came at Cersei.
Yes. Oh, that was great. Yeah, that was awesome.
We could probably do a whole episode just on this.
Yeah, we should. And I think, normal episodes might not be necessarily the right place to do something like this, but this is a rewatch, right? So we want to be able to talk about the whole series. So we might as well have spur of the moment little lists and stuff like this to think about. I also liked when the Mountain smashed that guy's head against the wall.
That was awesome.
You know what he was talking about?
When he was peeing, right?
Yeah. Cersei like saw my big dick or whatever, and licked her lips, and during the shame walk, and you can believe me. You all know I wouldn't lie to you.
He's like, because I've got such a long cock. And you're like, wow, dude.
Yeah. Tone it down.
Oh, Barristan Selmy when he died. That was shocking.
Yeah, that was pretty brutal.
Shocking.
Mm-hmm. Lots of good shocking moments.
Best show on television.
Oh, yeah. So I think that pretty much wraps up my number 5. Or my number 4, sorry. Yeah, the Buffalo Bill tuck back vibe, and trying to determine whether or not an onion is rotten, basically. Right?
It was a good little tangent. Well, I'm gonna piggyback on that just a little bit, just because, as I said, one of my points that I'm gonna bring now to my number 4 is the Baratheon showdown. Renly cracks me up because he's always wearing that stupid crown.
Oh yeah,
and just like, dude, you think that you're a king because you just put this weird crown on your head.
You're not digging the crown, huh?
Following you all the time. Well, it's just like he's like, I'm the king because I put a crown on my head. That's basically his decision-making process.
Yeah, totally.
And he says something really interesting to Stannis. He's like, you never wanted any friends. And you don't understand that if you don't have any friends, you don't get any power, something like that.
Yeah.
And it struck me that he thinks being king is just like this popularity contest when you look at Joffrey, who is the sitting king on the Iron Throne right now, has no friends and all the power. Everybody's fucking scared of this guy. He just walks around with his crossbow and his belt and, basically tells people, I just don't think Renly understands what is happening right now.
Yeah, well, either that or he's thinking about it from a different perspective, right? Because there's 2 ways you can obtain a throne. You can obtain it by right, like by being an heir, or the way his brother did it, which was by conquest. So he would not be the first male in his family to win the throne via this particular method of conquest.
No, and I agree with you on that. And I don't think that it serves anybody any purpose to have, these 2 brothers fighting against each other when really what they're trying to do is get the right family back on the throne. Right.
Yeah, I agree. They're both being so selfish here, especially Renly, that they can't just accomplish what needs to be done and oust these gold-haired bastards.
Yeah, and it's just, Renly's not preparing for war ever. He's having jousting tournaments, and he can't, seem to figure out how to effectively make a baby with his wife. And,
it's because he's always stabbing...
he's stabbing Loras Tyrell. Yeah. Which is fine. But it's just, he's so busy playing king that he doesn't ever do anything about it, and as a result, we're going to see later that his reign is about to end very abruptly, and he doesn't really get to fight any battles as a result. But what was I going to say? So Stannis asks Catelyn a very good question that is never answered in this episode, and it's, your husband sent me a letter telling me that I am the king because of this farce that's been happening in King's Landing. Why are you here with Renly?
And she totally does not. Yeah, she just skirts around that. She does not give a direct answer at all. He's totally right.
Well, we have a common enemy, and it's like, no, right now you guys are looking at each other and you want to kill each other. Like, both of you just, Let's figure this part out later.
Yeah, it's so frustrating.
Just the story could have gone a completely different way.
There's got to be a historical precedent for this that George R.R. Martin is working from here. Do you know of anything? Like brothers vying for a throne? There's got to be something, right? We'll have to look into that.
Yeah, that would be an interesting research project.
Yeah.
I'm going to do that later tonight for sure. Maybe there might be an edit right here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was a lot of what my Baratheon showdown kind of was, the whole thing was super frustrating in the fact that you never get an answer from Catelyn about why she's with Renly, other than she was told to go to Renly by Robb. So now there she is. And then Melisandre at the very end of that little meeting on the hill that they had, she looks directly at Renly and she's like, "The night is dark and full of terrors. You should take notice of that, buddy." Like, she directly threatens him.
And he kind of looks freaked out too. Yeah, he kind of looks spooked by that a little bit.
With good reason.
Yeah, she's pretty scary.
She looked beautiful in that shot, did she not?
Yeah, the red of the cloak, and yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty,
very, very striking.
I was going to say the same
beautiful.
thing, striking. Yeah, wild. Oh, how about the peach? The absence of the peach.
What?
Remember in the books, Renly pulls out a peach and offers a peach to Stannis, and says that he's so focused on like war and everything that he can't just he can never. His whole life he's never just been able to enjoy a peach, or like sit down and smell the roses for a minute.
Interesting.
And this was left out of the show, and I don't want to get too much in the book, so I'll post a video on the Game of Microphones Facebook page for anybody who's interested. But George R.R. Martin comments on this interaction between Stannis and Renly and the peach, and he wishes that it had been in the show because he thought it was important for Stannis' character. There's an important moment later on in the series reflecting on it, but I'll post that on the Game of Microphones page for people to watch because it's pretty interesting, and I think you'll get a kick out of it.
Oh, good. Yeah, I want to watch it.
Yeah.
I definitely want to watch it.
Does that wrap up your number 4?
Yeah, that wraps up 4 for me.
All right. So my number 3, since we've sort of switched orders here.
I know. You like how I did that?
Yeah. Turd. So my number 3 is Tyrion and Lancel, and just Tyrion making moves in general. And I know this has to be on your list too, right? So we can combine for this.
Yay!
So Lancel visits Tyrion. And Lancel is acting cocky, man. He is acting real cocky, like he is enjoying this position of power. Yeah. he gets, his position of power, and he gets access, unrestricted access to the queen, you could say.
Yeah.
So he has no idea what's coming for him. It's hilarious. So Tyrion is like, "Oh, well, you've delivered a message from my sister. It's interesting you've waited so long to deliver this message," implying that he must have been given this message earlier in the day because it's the hour of the wolf currently.
Well, yeah, he catches her. He caught him in a trap.
Right. So he gets him to admit that he was just with the queen at this hour. And he's like, "Cersei must have great trust in you, allowing you into her chamber during the hour of the wolf." And he has this look on his face where he's just like, "You're busted." And Lancel's just like, "Oh, fuck, he's on to me. I'm trapped."
I love
Tyrion is a master at this type of shit. It's just so much fun to watch, and he has these great both of the looks on their faces at this moment is just priceless. Tyrion's like, "Ha, I have you," and Dinklage just has the greatest expression on his face. And Lancel, the actor, like, this is one of the few questionable casting choices that they've made for this series, in my opinion, is the casting of Lancel here. Because he seems like almost too puny and pathetic to be a Lannister at all. You know what I mean? But, he's kind of described that way in the books, so it fits, but he's just so puny and, and pathetic.
Yeah, but when he goes over the Faith Militant, he beefs up.
Yeah, you're right. He did beef up quite a bit.
So it's funny to see, it's funny to see Lancel now.
Yeah, he's so different. And after thinking about it, I think that they probably did do a really good casting job for this.
You know what? When he was naked, I don't know, a couple episodes ago with Cersei, I'm just like, you are so gross. Like, I can't even take him seriously. It was just, I didn't understand, because I guess it was that he looked like a child to me.
Yeah, he's got a tiny
and I'm
frame.
just like, Cersei, what are you doing? You know, it doesn't.
Yeah,
look...
it doesn't fit with the Jaime thing.
Mm-hmm. You like warriors. You've Robert Baratheon and Jaime Lannister and Lancel Lannister. What?
Yeah.
I mean, do you just need to scratch an itch?
One of these is not like the other.
Yeah. So, you know, and she's like, get back in bed.
Yeah, maybe it's just because he's so easily manipulatable. 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 Ah. That was a total Team America moment.
Oh, the South Park guys.
Yeah.
America!
Fuck yeah!
So go on.
So he goes on to ask Lancel, you know, tell me, did Cersei have you knighted before or after she took you into her bed? And I'm dying laughing, and Lancel is just crumbling into like a little pile of goo. Uh-huh. And he's like, Tyrion's like, well, Joffrey needs to know about this. Oh, I'll be back. And Lancel drops to his knees and he's just like begging for Tyrion to not tell Joffrey. He's like, I'll leave the city, you know, I'll leave right now. And he's like, no, actually you won't. My lord? He's all confused, and it's Tyrion's plan the whole time. Just force him into submission. Now he's got eyes and ears right up close to Cersei.
Yeah, like a little closer than he probably wants, but he'll take it.
Yeah. So I just thought the scene is hilarious as Tyrion forces Lancel to roll over and shows him that sometimes the small dogs are the alphas, you know?
Well, you know, it's funny because, you know, Lancel comes in, and he has Cersei's hatred of Tyrion in him, right? So he feels entitled and powerful.
Right. Yeah, he's been imbued. Right. Mm-hmm. Wow, I didn't even think about it from that aspect. That's a great point.
And he's just like, imp, you know?
Imp, yeah, he calls him imp. And
he's like, oh, okay. Like, I literally don't care what you have to say about me, you know? And I love it because he also, you know, he's threatening not only to out him as somebody who's, you know, betting Cersei, but also as the guy that killed Robert Baratheon.
Right.
You know? And so it's just like once he knows that Tyrion actually knows all of that, yeah, that's the best part. Is that he's like, yeah, I got you, motherfucker.
And he breaks. You never see, Tyrion doesn't break at all. Like, his confidence is at 110% this whole scene. Mm-hmm. Lancel goes from being at 110% to going to 3%.
Well, because he came in, hilarious. You know, being selfly entitled. You know, that's what happened.
And just a total 180. It's great.
It's the best. Tyrion, though, man, gosh, I love him.
Yeah, he's so great. He's really an inspirational character, you know? Yeah.
Well, I loved him. I loved him when he came into the throne room earlier in the episode. That was probably my favorite part because he came in, he was angry. What is the meaning of this? You know?
And right as Meryn was about to, it looked like he was, what is he going to beat her with the side of his blade? Because I can't imagine he was about to cut her in half. He had his sword raised over his head like he was going to strike her with it.
Yeah, he struck her once with the flat of his sword
I missed
already. That. So, you know, he punched her in the stomach, and then he ripped off the back of her dress, and then he slapped her on her back with the flat of his sword.
And they're doing this in front of a bunch of people.
Who are doing nothing. Much like the people that did nothing when the Mad King was killing the last group of Starks that were in that same room.
Yeah, exactly.
But,
it's crazy.
That throne room has gone from vines to spikes.
Yep. I love that too. When he decides to remodel the interior of the throne room, This is a room for conquerors, not flowers and, that type of stuff. He hates flowers.
The worst.
Yeah, he is.
He hates flowers, but he married the rose.
True. That's funny as hell. That's really funny.
But I did. I loved Tyrion in that one scene because, he's like, I'm not threatening the king. I'm educating my nephew. He's like, if you speak one more word, Bronn, kill him. That was a threat. Do you see the difference?
The look on Meryn's face, he just does not say a fucking thing.
It was awesome.
So great too. I love the way that he said that to Joffrey. He's like, did your Uncle Jaime ever tell you what happened to the Mad King, who also would do as he pleases? Your Uncle Jaime stabbed him. People will stab you.
Yep.
That was great.
Because you have no friends.
Yeah. Oh, that was so great.
Did you notice that that the Hound covered up Sansa with his Kingsguard cloak?
Oh, with his cloak? Oh, brilliant.
And then later in the episode, when he's waiting for Joffrey to come into his room to give him his name day present, he doesn't have the cloak on. Interesting.
And, okay, that's a great thing, because we know he leaves his cloak. There's a lot of conspiracy theory about the Hound's cloak and in relation to Sansa. In the books, this is just a little detail to make you guys intrigued to read. In the future, she's wearing this green cloak that she has made herself. And after the Battle of the Blackwater, when the Hound visits her in her chambers and tries to get her to come with him so he can save her and take her to Winterfell, and she sings him the song, and there's that whole moment. Scene. He leaves his Kingsguard cloak, his bloody stained cloak, on the floor, and she kind of huddles in it. And it turns out that she likely has saved his Kingsguard cloak and has dyed it herself and turned it into this cloak that she's been wearing. But this ties into to what we've been talking about so far in this rewatch, because there are certain marital customs, you could say, throughout Westeros, and the cloaking. Mm-hmm. So we have Sam, who's talked about stealing his Gilly, and essentially making her his wildling wife. And we have the Hound who covers Sansa with his cloak in this moment. And that's sort of symbolic of marriage in the custom of the Seven, right? Tyrion covers Sansa with his cloak when they're married in the official ceremony in the future, in next season or whenever that is. So this could be sort of a symbolic representation of the connection between the Hound and Sansa, and they do seem to have a deep connection in the future.
I love everything that you're saying right now. I'm just freaking out over here.
Yeah, it's so cool. I just noticed this too. The things you notice, in the rewatches, and Sansa.
Well, knowing what you know about the Hound now, you know that this is a big moment for him. Because he ripped it off. I mean, you hear the ripping sound when he takes that cloak off and he wraps her in it, and she's immediately safe in it, And
what do you mean by it's a big moment for him?
Because it is the first, I would venture to say this is one of the first moments that
of compassion,
that he's going out of his way in front of the king to go against what the king is saying.
Yeah,
right?
It's true.
Somebody's saying cover her, and he's ripping off his Kingsguard cloak.
I can't wait to stop doing what the king told me to do and go with you instead, Tyrion.
But he's been Joffrey's dog, not the Kingsguard. He's been Joffrey's little plaything for years.
Ugh, it's horrible.
You know what I mean? So now he gets to rip off that cloak, and he gets to protect what he wants to protect.
Wow, and that's a whole nother level of symbolism in this scene. It's the foreshadowing him leaving the Kingsguard for good in episode 9, which is the Battle of the Blackwater, right?
Right.
So brilliant.
So that's what I took it. That's what I took it as when I watched it this week.
Amazing.
I took that as a very big moment for the Hound.
Yeah, it's a huge development for him. It lays it visually shows the foundation of his change in allegiance, is separation from Joffrey. That's great. That's really cool. I hope we see Sansa and the Hound reunited.
Oh, me too. Well, that's where they're headed, right? I mean, they're all headed to Winterfell now.
Totally.
Gendry and Arya.
Yeah, I was gonna say Arya can have Gendry.
Sansa and Sandor. Yeah.
Yeah, Sansa can have Sandor and vice versa.
Arya and Jon.
You mean Daenerys?
No, Arya and Jon. Arya and Jon still haven't seen each other.
Oh, yeah. Just being reunited. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, just being reunited. I want to see Sansa and Tyrion reunite.
Yeah.
I want all these people back together under it and at Winterfell. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I need
it to be 2019 right now.
I know, right? I could see Sansa ending up with Tyrion or the Hound.
Me too.
You know?
I would prefer her to be with Tyrion.
Yeah, I think so.
Because I think that they were actually really good together. I think that if she had dropped her act even a little bit to understand that he was really on her side while they were married,
right? That they would have gotten along
probably could have
great.
taken the Iron Throne together.
I think they're good. I think it would be more satisfying for me from the story arc, from the perspective of Sansa's psychology, to have her initial outlook completely reversed, which is like the gallant heroes are beautiful and the evil people are monstrous looking. She sees Jaime.
I see what you're saying.
What I mean?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Sees Jaime as this hero, and he subsequently tries to kill her brother and everything. And she sees the Hound as this monster. So for me, and from a narrative perspective, I would feel more satisfied to see her overcome her initial bias, essentially, and realize that the Hound is like a good guy. And I mean, Tyrion can. Tyrion can get any wife he wants.
Tyrion can also he fits the monster mold just because that's what he's been called his whole life.
That's true. That's great. Again, she was horrified by his twisted body and didn't want to sleep with him after their wedding. So there you go, same thing. So it applies for both characters.
Isn't it interesting that those are the two people want to put her together with?
Yeah.
And she married the real monster. With Ramsay.
Right, yeah, exactly. So she sees what a real monster is really like, and yeah. So either way, I guess it would be satisfying. I feel like it would probably be better, though, just because the Hound doesn't have too many options, They have an established relationship. Tyrion can find another girl, that won't be a problem for him.
I agree.
The Hound might have problems with it. That's so funny, though.
If he lives through next season.
Yeah, it's interesting, man. There's repeatedly where in the Sansa chapters or whatever, you get her perspective where she's asking, the mother to watch out for the Hound or to calm his fury or protect him, and she keeps coming back to him in her mind. So I feel like I do like the
softness with them, and I think that this scene, this subtle thing that happens with them while something else is going on, I think that really speaks to it. So.
Yeah, I agree. Great point. What else you got?
With Tyrion versus Joffrey and Cersei. The little back and forth that Tyrion and Joffrey are playing with, Tyrion comes in, and you could tell the minute that Tyrion comes into that throne room that Joffrey has been caught doing something bad, and he knows that he's about to get in trouble. He's king, and he knows he's about to get in trouble.
He's caught with his pants down and his hand in the cookie jar.
Totally. So instead of just learning from it and, being, I don't know, a normal human being, Tyrion's like, hey, why don't you have some girls have some sex, get a good night's sleep, put your crossbow down.
Take a break, picking the wings off of those flies.
Right. I mean, Bronn was very perceptive when it came to what, Joffrey was doing.
I think he's just perceptive in general. He's really perceptive.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah. But then Joffrey just...
Deep end.
He shows his sadism in a awful, awful way.
Yeah, he goes way off the deep end.
And I still don't know, because I didn't really look too far into this. Did Daisy die?
I don't know.
Or was she just beaten to a pulp?
I was going to ask you. Is her name Daisy?
Her name was Daisy.
Daisy. Oh, man. Yeah, that was brutal. Could you hit her? I'm like,
and at first they're like, oh, this is a fun game. And then he's like, harder. I'm like, uh-oh.
And he hands her the belt. I'm like, shit. Then he hands her this penis-shaped club with antlers. And I'm like, oh, fuck.
I'm like, where is she putting that? That was my first thought.
It's very phallically shaped.
Yes.
And then what Roz says, what did she say? Too much pain will, cancel out the pleasure. I was like, oh, man, this is not going to be good.
But then he says, I want my uncle to hear about it. I want you to take her body and show it to him.
It must have meant her body, right? Because otherwise, Roz wouldn't need to take her. She could go herself, theoretically.
Unless she was beaten that badly. I still don't know. If anybody does know, can you let us know? That'd be great.
What a horrible scene.
Yeah, but I mean, he's so awful in this scene, and I actually have some notes on Joffrey. Hang on.
Yeah, let's hear.
Where are they? Joffrey's beating. Yeah, so la la la. So what I said was because a lot of my notes were about the throne room, but for this particular scene when he's in his chambers, I just made a note saying this is an episode that really demonstrates the range of Joffrey's sadism. The whole episode was, right? I mean, you see him the way he is with Sansa in front of people. You see the way that he is when people aren't looking. They're not different. He's just awful through and through, doesn't care who sees, who notices, doesn't matter.
Yeah, he's G'd up. He's a gangster.
I don't know.
He doesn't give a fuck.
He's vile.
Yeah, he's
vile.
truly, truly vile. And you can tell that Roz figured out all of a sudden, like, oh shit, I'm in over my head here.
She knew when he handed her the belt.
Oh yeah, there's that moment though where it hits her and she realizes like, fuck, this is not good.
Well, it's interesting because Daisy wasn't like that. Daisy still thought that it was a game. Like, she still had a smile on her face, and it wasn't until he said harder that she realized that it was going to be a problem.
Yeah. I said harder. He'd want me to get his money's worth.
Oh my gosh.
Shit.
So he retaliates to Tyrion saying, I want him to see what I do with, what he thinks he's giving me, right? So this is his volley back to Tyrion. Oh, you're going to embarrass me and humiliate me in front of everybody when I'm sitting on the throne? Well, here's what I have to say about whatever gift you're going to give me.
Yeah,
Fuck
the
you.
same way he cuts the book in half when Tyrion gives him the book.
Oh,
for
gosh.
His name day.
That hurt my heart.
Yeah, me too. I hate the concept of destroying books and Fahrenheit 451 like we were talking about last week, or the destruction of the Library of Alexandria. Right. Tyrion said there's 3 copies of this, or 1 copy of this book.
No, one.
That's
it. That's the only one.
That was the only one?
Yeah.
Oh, man. He's lucky that Tyrion didn't choke him there.
I think Tywin was there, and Tywin didn't do anything, which that's a whole nother thing.
Yeah. Man, imagine how epic it would have been if Tywin just cut his fucking head off right there.
Man, that would have saved everybody a lot of heartache.
Yeah. Get back to work, Cersei. Make me another one. He's garbage.
Hang on, let me go
get
Jaime.
He's already got a couple. Yeah. Oh, man.
Anyways, that's the end of my number 3.
All right. Oh, yeah, we should also mention that line that Tyrion had to Lancel. It was hilarious. When he finally gives in, he's like, "Oh yeah, I'll release Pycelle. You can, in the morning, he'll be fine." And Lancel's like, "Fuck!" Like he was gonna just release him anyway. God damn it, And,
my favorite part was when he said, "Don't worry, he's no worse for wear." Or I didn't hurt a hair on his head. Oh wait, that may not be true.
Yeah, that's the line I was getting to. I'd say I didn't harm a single hair on his head, but strictly speaking, that wouldn't be true. And Lancel's like, oh, what the fuck does that mean? He thinks it's more severe than it is,
Lancel is definitely the dumbest Lannister there is.
Yeah. He's not the fattest, though. He's just the dumbest.
No, he's a pretty little princess.
Yeah. Or you'd know if your mother was the fat one. Isn't that what Jaime says to his cousin before he kills him? Remember that?
I think so.
There's
That's
only
in the
one
next episode,
fat
I think,
Lannister.
isn't it?
Maybe. There's only one fat Lannister, and you'd know if she was your mother. Hilarious. So my number 2 is Baelish machinations. And I just get a kick out of, seeing Baelish walk around doing his snake-like thing all the time. First he's
I'm going to move mine too, because mine is going to be number 2 now, is Littlefinger Lies.
Okay, great. Perfect.
I call him the heir to the Massengill throne.
To the what?
To the Massengill throne.
What's that?
Massengill is a feminine douche.
Oh.
It's a brand.
Perfect. That's funny.
Anyways, go on.
So what was he talking about with Renly? Do you remember? I remember he asked if he trusted Brienne. He says Brienne's loyalty comes free of charge.
Oh, I loved that. So what's interesting is that, we were talking last week about Littlefinger and his different voices.
Right.
And
did you pick up on that this week?
Well, so when Renly comes into the tent, Littlefinger goes, "Your Grace," in his like high-born voice. And then from that moment on, he was throaty. So that was really interesting to me. But he was talking about, I think he was doing the whole like, hey, I'm going to, if you come to King's Landing, I can get the doors open and you don't even have to fight for it.
Right. He's trying to bribe Renly to keep his position or his head. His head takes precedent. Now I remember. That's funny. And it'd be just like when Lord Tywin arrived to the city to sack King's Landing, and they opened the gates for him because he claimed he was going to be there to help, and instead he sacked the city. It's not exactly parallel, but it's
along
sort
the
of
same line.
mindful. Yeah, the gates get opened.
Right. The end result is the same.
Yeah, so Baelish is so funny, man. He's just so slimy. And then he ends up linking up with Marjorie as they're walking, because he's trying to find his way through the tent, and she agrees to help him find his tent. And she's talking about, every time we set up camp, it takes me a while to remember where my tent is. And he's like, your tent? What, do you have a separate tent from Renly? And he's hinting how he knows that Renly's gay. And, where was... who is keeping him company on your wedding night? And I saw your brother enter Renly's tent just now, and and all this. And Marjorie, man, what that outfit that she's wearing? That thing was crazy, huh?
Yeah, that, if it was going to rain, that was going to be a very unfortunate outfit.
Yeah, she's just like a walking cup of water.
Yeah, she's just going to start bowing to people, offering them something to drink.
It was sexy, though. I would take a drink out of that. Just saying.
I'm sure you would, along with half of the population.
Yeah, maybe even more than half.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah, so that was funny, this whole just interaction. Why are you so interested in our marriage? She asks. Because your marriage is very interesting. And it's just it's classic. She's ever so sharp and slick, and he's just so slimy, and it's really fun to see these two bounce off each other for a little bit. Who do you think ends up winning this confrontation?
Marjorie.
Nice.
Only because she doesn't care that Renly's gay.
Right.
She doesn't care if people know that he's gay. And I think that was the card that he had to play with her. And she just looked at him and she was like, I don't think you get it. Like, my king is my husband. My husband is my king. I serve my king. Like, I don't care.
Yeah.
So I just thought that was... that
was a good line, too.
It was a great line, but he, Littlefinger looked like he was a little taken aback about the fact that, she really honestly did not care that he was threatening to expose Renly. She's like, go ahead. I don't care.
DGAF.
Yeah.
That's great. So then Baelish shows up at Catelyn Stark's tent.
Ooh, great
Yeah.
scene.
And he is defending his actions against Ned and how he sort of betrayed Ned. And she's calling him out on it. And he's like, I freaking told him to take the chair, you know? But I've loved you all this time anyway, and maybe now this is a chance for us to... And she whips out a fucking dagger and, and just holds it right up to his...
him right in the heart.
Oh, man. She was ferocious in that moment, though. Like, you know? Pointing that
With
dagger
every
right
right
up at
to.
his face. Like, yeah. And he was shocked, but immediately was slick enough to change his game plan and just come from a different angle. His ambition at this moment, his goal is to trick her into releasing the Kingslayer, right? So he says, you know, he's talking about how, you know, the longer that he's like, you know, Joffrey and Cersei, like obviously they're fucking psycho. The longer that Sansa and Arya are in the city in King's Landing, the more, you know, the more danger it is for them. Like that's bad news.
He said the magic word.
I fear for their longevity if they remain at the capital.
Yeah. Throatier.
Yeah,
Throatier.
I feel for that. it's hard, man.
And he said the magic word. He said Arya.
Yeah,
she has
right?
not heard about Arya yet.
He lies to her, claiming that Arya is just as wild as ever, you know, and she's still alive. And for all he knows, Arya had made it back to camp with her. So that was a Hail Mary. Yeah, that was a gamble. So that reveals to him also that she doesn't know where Arya is, which is more points for him to use. Gamble that paid off. So he makes her scared for Sansa and Arya by warning about, you know, them staying there. And then he puts the nail in the coffin by bringing out the coffin, you know, and just to reinforce the fact that people you love will die. You know, he brings out Ned's bones and under the guise of it being a gesture of faith for Tyrion, from Tyrion. It's a psychological play to scare her into being even more fearful of Sansa and Arya's life at that moment because they're just talking about them being in danger for their life. So then, of course, pulling out the dead husband, reminding her that there are consequences, that people die. It only serves to make her more intent or more likely to betray Robb and release Jaime, and for the hope that Sansa and Arya may be saved. And he did a real good job. He was slick with that too. Like, I'm not bringing this offer to Robb, you know, I'm bringing this offer to you. You're a mother. Mm-hmm. Totally plays her like a fiddle. And I loved her, you know, her reactions to him throughout most of the scene. Pulling the dagger was great. She is like, what the fuck is this? And she kind of has an idea, and she kneels down and opens up the box with Ned's bones in it. And Baelish fucks up here. Like, he overplayed here. This is a dumb decision trying to say anything at this moment, but he's like, your husband was an honorable man. You know, he should rest beside his family in the crypts of Winterfell. Mm-hmm. You may not believe, get out! You know?
Totally.
Except she doesn't freak out like that. She's more like, get out! You know?
Yes, but her brain said exactly what you just said, right?
Yeah, get the fuck out of here!
I'm gonna fucking kill you!
Don't you talk about the crypts! Don't you talk about his family! You know?
Well, I mean, also, he had Ned's bones. He had them. And he's still, before he does it, he's like, this is our chance. This is fate, you know?
Yeah.
Like, he's trying to make a romantic pass at her right before he gives over her husband's bones. I know.
Yeah.
I mean, if that isn't like a character flaw, just like flashing like a red beacon of light. I don't know what else. It's just showing you
sociopath. Like, doesn't understand humans. Doesn't like that's he's a total lunatic.
Yes, an ambitious sociopathic lunatic.
He's amazing to watch. It's so much fun.
I know. I love Aidan Gilliam. I love him.
He's great. Yeah, it's such a good job.
You should see him in The Wire.
Oh yeah, I need to watch The Wire. Chad L.
To.
Coleman, Lawrence Gilliard Jr.,
Seth Gilliam.
Seth Gilliam.
And then a bunch of other actors that are just phenomenal. Yeah, one of the greatest shows ever. I have 2 more episodes, and I've been, like, saving them.
Oh, nice. I've been saving this series. There's a couple that I've been saving. I've been saving The Wire, been saving The Sopranos, for example. I've seen a couple episodes, but I've been saving that, you know?
I'm getting out my shame bell. I can't believe you haven't seen The Sopranos. Anyways.
I know. I've seen a few episodes, loved it. So I'm just been like sitting on it, waiting for the right moment.
This is it.
This is now. Tony's calling me. Yeah, so that pretty much wraps up my
I had
number
a question about this Littlefinger scene with Catelyn. And
all right.
Maybe you can answer it or we can talk about it.
Yeah.
But I wonder if, 'cause I see I wrote it, this question down on my margins. So Littlefinger's betrayal of Ned in season 1, that ultimately gets him killed. I'm wondering if his original intention was, if I get Ned out of the way, then Kat's mine.
It certainly played into his decision for sure.
Did you see that he called her Cat in that scene when she was running away, and he started getting into like his desperation mode, you know?
I didn't notice.
No, wait, Cat, please, Cat.
That's funny. I didn't notice
like he dropped all formality
pretense
with her.
Yeah. Wow, that's wild.
Which is, you know, very much like when he was on his knees begging for his life, you know, like there's, I guess, very few things that get him to kind of be Peter Baelish, and that's whatever obsession he has with the Stark/Tully woman and his life.
Yeah, basically. Whatever weird possessive obsession he has with her, yeah, because it's not love, you know, whatever it is. Weird.
Well, and if it had been love before, it's definitely just clouded by ambition now.
Yeah.
Because he was their ward, right?
Yeah, he was a ward at the Tullys, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They would play their kissing games.
They would. Cersei understands, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, Littlefinger, you get a good dose of him. You know, you see him with Kat, and how he's trying to play her in different angles in the same scene, and she's so grief-stricken and angry that she can't see that he's just, okay, that didn't work, so let me try
exactly.
this, you know, okay, that didn't work. So, you know, first he tried the romantic advances, then he finally got her to drop the dagger. Then he got her to drop the dagger for when he said Arya.
Right.
And then when she was getting angry again, that's when he shoved the bones over, right? So he had like different levels of how he was going to communicate with her if all his plans backfired.
He's got a flow chart planned out for every occasion.
He does.
If this happens, then do this. If this happens, then do this, and then this. You know.
But he does say to Sansa later when they're together, you always plan for every possible outcome. And I think that's kind of played out here.
Yeah. That's his mental flow chart.
Yeah.
So funny.
You know, and then I just love it that Renly just looks at him and he's like, I don't like you, okay? Like, why are you here?
Yeah.
I don't like you. I don't like it that you're here. Just tell me why you're here so that you can leave.
That's great.
So, yeah, that's my Littlefinger bit.
Nice. Wraps up your number 2?
Yeah.
Cool.
What's your number 1?
My number 1 is Harrenhal.
All right.
Just in general, Harrenhal has always stuck out to me as being a really cool castle in Westeros. Because as it's described, it's like the tallest, most monstrously huge, just massive castle in all the land, built by Harren Hoare, also known as Black Harren, who basically thought that this thing was impregnable. And if it wasn't for dragons, it would have been impregnable. It's built right at the top of the God's Eye Lake on the north shore. And as we see, when we first see Harrenhal here for the first time in the series, it is trashed. Its towers are just melted and destroyed. Gendry says, "What kind of fire melts stone?" as they approach this just decimated castle, and Arya says, "Dragon fire." You know. So the history of this place, it's built by Harren the Black, and he essentially refuses to submit to Aegon the Conqueror. And in retaliation, he's like, "I'm just going to, lock myself up in my castle. You can't do shit. Conqueror my ass." And Aegon's like, "Ha ha ha ha, you're so clueless." So Aegon, flies way up into the sky, so high that the dragon's just a tiny speck, and just dive bombs Harrenhal, blowing fire down onto it until the castle towers were white hot with from the heat, and they start twisting and bending and melting and roasting alive all the people inside, including Harren the Black and his sons. And this defeat of Harren the Black, with the destruction of Harrenhal, the most impregnable castle in all the Seven Kingdoms, combined with the stunning defeat at the Field of Fire when Aegon and Visenya and Rhaenys rode all three of their dragons and just completely destroyed the Lannister and the people who used to run the Reach. They combined forces to meet and fight Aegon at the Field of Fire. It's House Gardner that I was trying to think of. Mern the Ninth was the king of the Gardeners, the king of the Reach that fought with the Lannisters against Aegon at the Field of Fire and was destroyed. But yeah, these two families, they get destroyed by Aegon as well, and these two events lead to the Stark king in the north, Torrhen, bending his knee and submitting to Aegon the Conqueror, because he saw what happened to Harren the Black, having his whole castle destroyed, and he saw what happened to the armies of the Lannister king and this other king, King Mern, I think it was, Mern something. But yeah, so Torrhen bends the knee, submits, and that's how Aegon took over the Seven Kingdoms. But Harrenhal is a hugely important part of that, so it's cool to see it on the show and to see just how fucked up it is and destroyed from the Black Dread Balerion, just melting it.
Yeah,
it's so cool.
Well, it's interesting to note that every family or every house that's ever held Harrenhal has withered away to extinction.
Right. Yeah, that's the other important thing, too. It seems that this castle is cursed. Every family that has held it, like you said, died. We have Black Harren, who's just burnt to a crisp inside his own home. We have Tywin Lannister, who holds it here, and he ends up being shot on the shitter by his own son.
Well, and his house is pretty much withering away to nothing.
Right. Yeah, his whole house is essentially ruined.
A branch.
Yeah. And then we have Baelish, who takes possession, and he's killed. We have the Boltons, who take possession, and they're wiped out as well.
Absolutely, yep.
We have the Ironborn, who had been holding it. And look, Balon Greyjoy's dead. Theon has his dick cut off. Like, that's the end of the male line of that segment, at least that branch of House Greyjoy, gone after they held Harrenhal for a bit as well before the Boltons took it from them. So yeah, anybody that holds Harrenhal is fucked, basically.
Right.
It's crazy. And I have written down here, what kind of fire melts stone. Oh, what were you going to say?
Well, I was just looking at something. It just said that the houses that held Harrenhal is House Corys, House Towers, House Harroway, House Strong, House Lothson.
Oh, the Lothston, the black bat of Lothston. Brienne carries a shield from one
Mad
of their
Lady
shields.
Lothston.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, remember in the books, Brienne carries a black bat of Lothston shield after she gets out of Harrenhal, and she ends up having that shield painted to her new sigil, which is the same sigil of Sir Duncan the Tall.
Interesting.
Yeah, so that she was carrying around this black bat, and people were like shunning her because of it. And she's like, no, I'm not like related to the Lothstons. So that's funny. Yeah, these families are all like destroyed and despised, it seems.
Well, and then this says that House Went apparently only went extinct in the male line. However, Catelyn's mother was born a Went, but she became a Tully. And when you see the Tullys are done.
Yeah. It's true. Edmure's captive. Catelyn's dead.
I don't know what happened to Edmure's baby. I think he had a son.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I think that's a loose end right now. That
it is. It's all up in the
addressed.
air.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Harrenhal, man.
Yeah, craziness. So we get in there and we hear the tickler working in the background as the dude's screaming. And we get a face-to-face with this poor mother who's listening as her son is tortured to death. And before that, it was her husband and, in the days prior. So that's horrible. Yeah, and her daughter. Arya wakes to shouting, and she's chained up amidst the prisoners. She sees the mountain approach. This is a funny part. Hot Pie, she's like, what the fuck are you doing, Hot Pies? Don't look at him. Hot Pie's like, well, this guy... Yeah, Hot P. All you need to do is change one word, one letter. And so Hot Pie's like, well, this guy looks at him every day, and he never gets killed, right? And then it's that guy who's looking at him that ends up being taken that day. And Hot Pie literally has the piss scared out of him here as he hot pees himself.
Poor Hot P.
Poor Hot P.
Poor little Hot P.
And man, this guy does not have a good time as he is tortured with a rat and a bucket and fire. And, you put that fire up to that side of the bucket, and there's only one way out for that rat, and it's digging through that soft flesh. So that's pretty gnarly. Ugh. And it was really hard to watch. And we see Arya going to sleep again, and she's reciting her names. Joffrey, Cersei, Ilan Payne, the Hound. And then that woman is begging Polliver for a crust of bread, and Polliver instead just beats her horribly. And then Arya adds to her list, Polliver, the Mountain.
Is Meryn Trent on her list yet?
I don't think so.
That's interesting, because Meryn Trent was supposed to be on her list because he killed Syrio.
Yeah, he must be on there. I think that they they're working with as many seconds as they can spare, so they don't give us the whole list every time. Like when she's outside the House of Black and White, it's an incomplete list as well, I think. Mm-hmm. So yeah, she adds Polliver and the Mountain to her list at this moment. Then next time we cut back to Harrenhal, the guy who was looking at the mountain, his head is being pounded onto a spike.
Yes.
Which is wild. It's just right onto the spike. You never get to see the heads actually being put on the spikes, so that was pretty cool. And horrible at the same time, obviously. But then Gendry is taken, and everybody's like, oh, fuck. And they are about to, they're just applying the rat to Gendry's gut as Tywin arrives. The imposing Tywin Lannister arrives, just standing tall above everybody on his horse. And everything at Harrenhal halts.
Do you notice that they bowed to him?
Oh, I didn't notice that, but yeah, it makes sense. I mean, he's essentially the ruler of the Seven Kingdoms when it really comes down to it. Mm-hmm. So he's like, what's up with these prisoners? And he's like, why aren't they in the cells? The cells are overflowing. We just kill them. Like, who cares? And he's like, are we so well manned that we can discard young, abled bodies and skilled laborers? And Polliver's like, hadn't considered that, boss, So, so he asks Gendry, would you have any skills? He's like, yeah, I'm like a really, really awesome smith. I was trained on the Street of Steel at like the top of the top by Tabo Mott, one of the few people in the Seven Kingdoms that knows how to rework Valyrian steel. So, fucking yes, I have a skill. So
Love that.
Right. So Tywin obviously puts him to work, and he tells Polliver to put the prisoners to work. And he has a great little interaction with Arya. Arya is spying Needle, and she's looking at it and looking at it and looking at it. And finally, Polliver's like, "What are you looking at, girl?" And pulls out his steel.
He said, "Boy."
Oh, boy, right. "What are you looking at, boy?" And Tywin comes over. "This one's a girl, you idiot." You know? Mm-hmm. So she's like, "Why?" He's like, "Why are you dressed like a girl, a boy, little girl? You know, safer to travel, my lord." Smart,
Clever girl.
Smart. More than I can say for this lot. Stupid Polliver and these idiots. Get these prisoners to work. Bring the girl. I need a new cupbearer. You know. So that was cool. Tywin is just so magnetic. It's hard to look anywhere else on the screen when Tywin's on the screen. Especially for some reason when he rides in on the horse, he just looks like very imposing.
Well, he looks like that's where he belongs.
Yeah, he's at the top of pinnacle of his game.
He has a great chemistry with Arya too.
Yeah, it's really funny. It's how he's so easily able to decipher that she's highborn, and I wonder if he has figured out who she is.
No way.
No, you don't think so? You think he would have used it?
Yeah.
For me, I feel like he's got like an interesting code. You know, like when he started to have respect for Tyrion, he put him in a position of power. He obviously had respect for Arya here. Maybe if he had figured out, I mean, obviously at this point he hasn't figured out who she is, but during the cupbearer scene, if he ends up figuring out that she's a Stark, maybe he's willing to just let her slide to just see what happens. You know, I don't know. It's
I agree with you to a
certain extent. I know. Even I'm trying to make an argument here for myself because
I think he even says he even suggests that she was highborn,
right?
But I don't think he put it together that she was Arya Stark.
Yeah,
because Arya Stark is missing. So I just feel like if he had put it together that it was Arya Stark, it would be one of those no, you're fucking Arya Stark. We got to make sure that we have a handle on you at all times.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's a logical thing. Yeah.
And he's a very methodical mind. So.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. He probably did not.
At the same time, he wouldn't give Arya over to Joffrey and Cersei because he knows that Joffrey would probably just torture and kill her because he hates her.
Yeah.
Or he hates everybody. I don't know.
Yeah, he just hates anybody that's not him.
Right. Exactly. He even hates his own mom.
Yeah.
So I had a question about this whole sequence with the killings in Polliver and Harrenhal, and I looked it up and I tried to see if it had been mentioned before, but I think this is the first time that Beric Dondarrion's commission from Ned Stark has now been called the Brotherhood. Oh, yes, it definitely. This is the first time. Yep, I hadn't even really thought about it. So used to hearing, the Brotherhood. So yeah, good call. This is our first mention of the Brotherhood without banners. Definitely. Which is interesting. Yeah, which is great because we know that that they're they were commissioned by Ned Stark to go and get the mountain and all of the mountain's people and bring them back. And we don't know that this is the same group at this point, right? We just hear of a group called the Brotherhood. We're not we're not aware that it's Beric yet, right? Right. Yeah, it's interesting. So it's kind of fun to know now that they're looking for these people that are probably just wreaking havoc. Yeah, and it's good to know that Ned has a legacy, another aspect of his legacy that's currently in motion. Mm-hmm. That's cool. Very much. I love it. Definitely. So that pretty much wraps up my number one. That's your number one? Yeah. So my number one is really the only kind of thematic thing that I have going on, but it's still people. That's and it's totally the cool. Women of Westeros, right? Yay. And I really like pointing out all of the women when they get to be these, great, strong characters because the show is so rapey. So it's nice to kind of say, well, George R.R. Martin doesn't really hate women, okay? The strongest characters in this series could be argued that they're all female. Yeah, for sure.
Brienne, Daenerys,
Right. So in this
Arya.
episode, we see a lot of the women and their survival skills. Right. That's something that we use in my family, of using your survival skills. Right. What your strengths are and how to succeed and just be successful, I guess. So I made a little list, and we have Sansa at the top. Just, she's giving out her party line or mantra that she gives. I love my betrothed Joffrey. I'll do anything for him.
Right.
I'm not going to trust you. I'm not going to trust you. I don't care what he does to me. I'm not giving this guy any more
ammunition.
Right.
Yeah, and Tyrion's response to that. Remember his response?
He said, "You may survive us all."
Yes. That was interesting.
He understands what she's doing, right? And she's very focused on staying alive and just getting through whatever she needs to get through, which I think is just, it's this quiet strength that Sansa has that I think goes overlooked to just a casual observer of the show. Arya, her strength lies in being able to face the awful. And she doesn't turn away, and she doesn't retract in horror at these people getting killed. She is watching it, and she's using it. And, she goes to bed every night and she says her list, and that gives her resolve and purpose to get through to the next day. And she's got this fearlessness in her that serves her purpose.
Yeah, she totally stays frosty.
Yeah. She's always aware, she knows what the smell of death is, and she doesn't care. Like, she looks at Hot Pie like, it's dead people, like, get with the program.
Yeah, like he was.
Or, how are you still alive?
He was bragging about killing people before, and she's schooling him.
I know, that's great. She was able to talk to Tywin, and she's got that highborn in her, so she's not intimidated by all of these lords,
Right, that's a good point too. That stands out. That makes her stand out immediately.
Right. Yeah. So that's a strength that she can use. Like, she's acting like, she's invisible. She's one of the common people, but really she's like, I don't give a fuck about any of you people. Okay. My dad was Ned Stark.
Yeah.
He's the biggest
king.
Deal in the lands.
It's kind of a big deal.
My brother's the king in the north. Like, I don't care. And then you have Talisa, right? We see this new character, Talisa, who is, she's healing all of these injured people, and she's throwing shade at Robb and Roose, like, get out of my way, she's calling out Robb for not having a plan if he wins the war. And she's telling Roose to, kick rocks and beat it. He's got nothing to offer right now. So she's from Volantis, she reveals in this opening episode for her character, which means that she probably doesn't care about any of these lords either.
Yeah.
Or these fake kings. She's like, I don't care who you guys are. I'm here to serve a purpose, and that's to help these people. So I thought that she showed a lot of strength just in her only scene that she had in this episode. To a certain extent, I put Roz on the list. Roz tried to stand up to Joffrey. I think anybody that tries to stand up to Joffrey is braver than I would ever be. She's
I'll
like,
give yourself
no.
some credit. I think you're probably plenty brave.
Well, he's scary.
He's a little blonde boy, but yeah.
He's very scary. But she's like, hey, Tyrion's not going to like this if he hears about this. And he's like, no, I want him to hear about it, But she tried to save her friend, and she tried to save, she tried to stand up to the king. And I think that just merits a little, that merits her spot on this list of strong women.
And she had another type of strength too, which was the strength to follow through with the disgusting behavior that Joffrey wanted her to do, just out of self-preservation. As horrible as it was, she was at least strong enough to do it, to survive.
Because if she didn't do it, he would have killed her.
Yeah. So that's another type of strength.
That's a great point. Catelyn, she as grief-stricken as she is and as weak as she probably feels with, loss and war, she was able to look at both of these Baratheon men and try and use her mothering skills, which are her survival skills, right? To stop the fighting of these two childish brothers, right?
Yeah.
She's able to use her relationship with Baelish to kind of get him out of her head a little bit and order him away. So she impresses me all the time. As much as she could be annoying, she's also somebody that is just such a I think she's an incredible character in what she endures and what she does to keep her family alive.
She's got that woman's sort of strength. Isn't that what Brienne says?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Absolutely. And I think that, the woman sort of strength is a strength that it comes from a very, very deep spot.
Yeah.
Daenerys, who we haven't really touched on at all, but I loved seeing her leadership style kind of emerging in this episode. She was not willing to show her dragons. She was not willing to use her dragons, who she considers her children, for her own personal gain. That was a dangerous game that she was unwilling to play, and she could have died for it. All of her people could have died for it, but she stood her ground.
Yeah, that was pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then she, she's like, we're going to burn your cities down. You're going to remember this and blah, blah, blah. So I think that she kind of rattled Zorro a little bit, which is why he, proclaimed Sumai, right? He, what was it called? Declaring Sumai?
He invoked Sumai.
Invoked. Thank you.
I had a different interpretation of that. I thought that he saw her as a means to gaining more. He's like, ooh, if she really does have dragons, I could vouch for her here and get her on my side, and then I could try.
Oh, probably. But she made herself visible to him.
Oh yeah, definitely.
You know what I mean? I mean, if she didn't have those dragons, she probably wouldn't have felt the need to start screaming at all of them.
Yeah, and if she hadn't been projected herself as that strong, it wouldn't have been that appealing to Zorro.
Right. So I think that those 2 points kind of complement each other a little bit.
I would agree.
When learning about the Garden of Bones and realizing that even going outside the gates of Karth could get everybody killed.
Yeah. Yeah, that's hardcore.
She still went.
Yeah.
She's still like, no, we're going to do this. They're going to let us in. Period. End of story.
That quote from Jorah, every time the Carthians shut their gates on a traveler, the garden grows.
So awesome.
Yeah.
Jorah's he's a good guy to have.
Yeah, he's got an awesome
in this part
voice
of the world. Too. I agree.
I really like his voice.
And then the last person I put on this little list was Melisandre, and I put her on the list because I think that she uses her seductive skills, her absolute faith in R'hllor,
and her trickery too.
Yeah, and her confidence. She has such confidence that, she doesn't let anything in to bother her or set her away from her mission. And so I just love it when, you can look at an entire episode and you can see there are all these really badass, strong women, whether you like them or you don't like them. I mean,
they're strong.
Yeah, they're strong and they're making shit happen. And
Marjorie too.
Marjorie, yes, absolutely. And I don't know why she's not on this list. I think she's on a different list. I made 2 lists. But yeah, because she stood up to Baelish and she was like, yeah, whatever, he's gay. I don't care. You look at me, I'm a queen.
Yeah,
I don't care.
You think you got leverage on me or something? You don't get shit,
yeah.
boy.
Go ahead, do it. I dare you. I dare you to go to anybody with this.
You don't want to play chicken with Baelish, though. It's a dangerous game.
Yes, it is.
That's so crazy.
So that was my number 1, just wanting to tip my hat to the women of Westeros.
Nice. Yeah, that's awesome. We got lots of great women characters, great females, great wenches to admire.
Yes, the wenches are
The
very
wenches
nice.
of Westeros.
The wenches of Westeros. Perfect.
I thought it was funny, too, when Dany got kind of caught in a lie there as she claims to be aware of the legendary beauty of the city Quarth. And the spice trader is like, it's actually Karth, so I can tell you've never heard of us.
That was awesome.
Yes,
and then she had to spit out that word friend. She's like, yes, my friend. Like, pained her to say that.
Yeah.
She has some great moments there. I agree.
I also wanted to mention, what was it? Is there anything else here for this scene while we're on it? Oh, there's a great line here when Zarro steps forward to speak against the spice trader, and the spice trader's like, "The 13 have spoken," and Zarro's like, "I am one of the 13, and I'm still speaking, homie."
I love that.
Yeah, and he sort of mocks the spice trader for retreating from a little girl. Like, what are you? You're too scared to let a little girl and a couple Dothraki stragglers into the city, like, for real,
right?
And the spice guy is like, well, she threatened to burn down our city, and he's like, she's the mother of fucking dragons. You think you can? She's gonna watch her people starve without breathing fire?
Right.
That's just a great line. I thought that was really cool. And
I agree.
That guy he looks really tall, man. Zarro. He looks huge compared to these other guys. Yeah, he's like, we didn't become the strongest city in the world by letting Dothraki savages through our gates, and he's like, well, I'm a savage from the Summer Island, right? Summer Islands. And
look, here I am.
Yeah, and your city's stronger with me, right? So that was pretty cool.
I'm the richest man in the world now, bitch.
Zarro's like a good guy before he is a total douche.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, and that was cool how he invoked Somai and sliced his palm. Oh, that would suck to do.
Oh, I felt it.
Yeah, exactly. And we see Karth and the gate when the gates open, and it's gorgeous. It's like the sloping hill that goes right down to the water there, and beautiful buildings all around. And so there's like they're in the middle of the Red Waste. Apparently, they're right at the coast. They were 3 days from Karth, which is on the coast. So it's just all desert and this one irrigated city, essentially, that's just like a diamond in the middle of a desert. It's crazy.
That apparently just, has a wall around all the water.
Yeah, an oasis. Yeah. Well, there's they have to. Maybe they have like wells or something to get fresh water because they can't drink the ocean water. So like,
I was just wondering how on earth they got the walls around. I was trying to picture it in my head. I have the map downstairs on my wall, so I'm gonna look at it.
Mine hasn't come yet. Got to figure that out. But yeah, I mean, you'd probably be able to walk around the walls of Karth to the ocean, but that wouldn't really do you any good because it's ocean water. You can't drink it.
But how far out do the walls go? I mean, can you swim around it?
Probably, but they'd see you coming. Somebody would notice.
Yeah.
Who are these new people?
Again.
Yeah, we got swimmers. Unleash the warlocks. Yeah. Pyat Pri is like, they just all burst into flames or something.
Like spikes or something. I can't see.
Yeah. Freaking crazy warlocks. That pretty much wraps it up for my notes. You got anything else you want to mention?
No, I think I've mentioned it all.
All right. So we will take a little break and we'll be back with news.
Enjoy your Buffalo Bill song.
Yeah.
Won't you listen to me? You told me I've seen it all before. I've been there. I see my hopes and dreams are lying on the ground. I see the sky just begin to fall. You see, all things pass into the night, and I said, oh no, sir, say you're wrong. Won't you listen to me?
And we're back with the news. News about Game of Thrones, believe it or not. You want to start off, Kristen?
Sure.
All right.
This article is by Cinema Blend. How Game of Thrones Bran feels about Jon and Dany's incest, according to the actor. Season 7 of Game of Thrones was a doozy, and fans are still recovering from the chaotic, albeit shorter edition. With a limited amount of episodes left until Westeros' story concludes, last season was forced to amp up the pace and excitement to a fever pitch in order to cover all the material needed in its penultimate go on the small screen. And the season left quite a few cliffhangers as Bran and Samwell Tarly realized that Jon and Dany were related, as the duo were in the midst of passion. So how will the lone surviving Stark son react to his cousin doing the deed with a relative, especially given that incest is the reason he was thrown out of the tower in episode 1? Cinema Blend's Laura Hurley recently asked that to actor Isaac Hempstead Wright, just that. And he said, I don't think it'll be such an issue for Bran because he takes quite an objective look at the world. And mainly all he's concerned with is whether people are getting killed and whether there are people lying. I don't think Bran's really sitting there judging whether having sex with your aunt is right or not. I don't think that there's enough of a moral personality to Bran in that sense, in that he sits there and passes judgment on what relationships are okay and who you love. What will bother Bran more is the fact that it could end up being a very, very tricky situation with his new queen and the person who's actually the king, and they're in love. I think what actually bothers is not the actual act of incest, but more the fact that this is going to be very, very dangerous. Bran has changed drastically since becoming the Three-Eyed Raven, and it appears that this will also affect how he treats Jon and Dany's accidental incestuous tryst. Rather than looking at their budding romantic relationship morally, it seems that the war against the Night King is the only thing on Bran's mind this coming season. As such, he'll be looking at how Jon and Dany's bond will affect the war to come, as well as the threat of Cersei to the south. Overall, it would be great to see more of Bran's personality come back when Season 8 of Game of Thrones premieres sometime in 2019. Boo. He was largely consumed by his new role as the Three-Eyed Raven and the endless amount of information that he's trying to sort through in his brain. As such, his reunions with Arya and Sansa weren't quite as emotionally satisfying as they could have been. But the trio of Stark siblings managed to unite by the end of the season, killing Littlefinger for his crimes in the process. Yeah! Cinema Blend was able to get a sneak peek into Isaac Hempstead Wright's process as Bran in conjunction with the release of Season 7's home release, which is currently available now.
Our next item is an article by Winter is Coming. Liam Cunningham, Davos, on Season 8. I know everything now. Bran Stark, a.k.a. the Three-Eyed Raven, is the best-informed person on Game of Thrones. But off-screen, pretty much the entire cast has read the scripts for the final 6 episodes of Game of Thrones, and that gives them power. I know everything, star Liam Cunningham, Davos Seaworth, told The Independent. I've read the last 6 episodes. It makes me want to go into Patty Powers and put a few quid on. Wow, I don't know what that means.
He wants to take bets.
Okay. That's funny. That sounds more like something Tyrion would do, not Davos, but far be it for us to put limits on how Cunningham uses his information. HBO, on the other hand, with great power comes great responsibility, a lesson Cunningham has been slow to learn when it comes to Game of Thrones. I used to leave the scripts lying around my house and my daughter would go mad at me screaming, "Put them away!" With all the security measures in place for Season 8, that would never happen now. But however casual he was about scripts in the past, Cunningham has never feared that he was in danger of spilling the show's secrets. The code of silence is, apparently, too complete. It's like being a member of the Masons.
That's so cool.
In quotes. As Game of Thrones barrels toward the finish line, many cast members are excited to tackle the next leg of their careers. Cunningham isn't necessarily among them. It happens all the time when you're working as an actor, even jobs you love. They are always taken off you like your children. They just disappear. It's going to be a massive shame. My accountant's not happy. I'll be back down at Hatch 13 on Gardner Street collecting me dole after this. Cunningham isn't being totally serious, of course, as Thrones has led to a significant spike in the demand for the Irish actor. There's stuff coming in now because my stock has gone up slightly, so I think the financiers have become a bit more confident about backing stuff that I'm involved in, he said. Still, it just means there's a larger proportion of crap coming in. I'm waiting for decent stuff.
I love
Good
that.
for you, being able to pick and choose. Here's hoping the decent stuff comes in soon. In the meantime, we'll enjoy Sir Davos for as long as we can.
Agreed. I love the Onion Knight.
Davos!
I love the Onion Knight.
Me too. It's the best.
Okay. Item. This article is by Winter is Coming. The Game of Thrones Season 8 director lineup clarified.
Woo!
The final season of Game of Thrones is over a year away, but certain things, like the lineup of directors, are becoming clear. Fabian Wagner has served as the director of photography on several episodes of Game of Thrones, including Season 4's The Laws of Gods and Men, Season 5's Hard Home, and Season 6's Battle of the Bastards and the Winds of Winter. Great episodes.
Those are all episodes that have particularly great photography, DP work. Those are great episodes for that. So
it's a very nice resume there, buddy.
Yeah.
He worked on those last two under director Miguel Sapochnik. Did I say that
You
right?
got it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Both Sapochnik and Wagner are
Well, he
returning
fucked it up
for
that time,
season...
though.
Oh, come on.
I'm kidding.
Both that director and Wagner are returning for season 8, which will consist of only 6 episodes. We're back together as a team, and we've got a couple of very exciting episodes ahead of us, he told Collider. We're shooting episode 3 and episode 5. Ooh. We learned back in September that now I've got to think about it.
Sorry. Sapochnik, you got it. You're good.
Sapochnik, probably the show's most consistent director, will be returning for season 8. Veteran Thrones director David Nutter will also be in the mix, while showrunners David Benioff and Dan Weiss will direct the final episode themselves. So between them, Nutter and Sapochnik would direct 5 episodes, but until now, we didn't know how the work would be divided up. But assuming that Sapochnik isn't working with multiple directors of photography, the final lineup should look like this. Episode 1, Nutter. Episode 2, Nutter. Episode 3, Sapochnik. Episode 4, Nutter. Episode 5, Sapochnik. Episode 6, David Benioff and Dan Weiss. Wow. Knowing who will direct what episode doesn't confirm plot details, but it could give us a general idea of what will happen. Directors are often chosen for their strengths.
So battles in episode 3 and 5.
I wish it was all 6. While Nutter has directed action, he's probably best remembered for helming some of the show's smaller scale shocking moments, such as the Red Wedding, the burning of Shireen, and Cersei's Walk of Shame.
Damn.
Episodes 1, 2, and 5 may keep things a little smaller. Probably not, but okay.
Yeah, right. Nothing small from here on out.
Yeah, nothing.
Nothing.
I agree. Meanwhile, Sapochnik has made a name for himself directing the show's biggest action set pieces, including the action scenes at Hard Home and Battle of the Bastards. At the moment, the production is readying 2 huge sets for what looks like battle sequences. We're getting spoilery here now.
Yeah. Uh-oh.
So I'm going to maybe stop.
Yeah, I think that's
safe. That should wet everybody's whistle. If you'd like to read more, you can. Again, the article is by Winter is Coming, and it's called The Game of Thrones Season 8 Director Lineup, Clarified.
Perfect. I agree. Good decision. I didn't want to... I was starting to get nervous there, too.
Me too. Well, I don't like knowing anything anyways.
Yeah.
I mean, side note, I went to see Star Wars this past week. I just saw it for the second time today. The best part is that we decided a long time ago we weren't going to watch any trailers. We didn't watch any trailers. We didn't read any articles. We didn't know anything going in, and the payoff was really great. So
nice.
I like going that route most of the time if I can.
Fuck yeah, I'm in the same position, so I'm looking forward to seeing that soon, real soon too.
Yeah, you better.
Seriously. We will be right back with Ravens calls.
Walker ravens.
Yeah. Frog ravens.
There you go.
Avelino Rochino says...
One of my favorite people in the whole world.
Yeah, me too.
I just had to say that really quick.
What's up, Avelino?
Love you, buddy.
Man, Lord Tywin can sure make an entrance. Charles Dance portrayed him with such bearing that even in the shithole where Arya's comrades being tortured, Tywin lights up the courtyard with an aura of leadership and decisiveness. Also, we get a peek into the sadism that is rife in House Bolton. In my family, we say a naked man has few secrets, a flayed man, none. And finally, it's tough to see just how low the main female protagonists of this series have fallen. Arya, Dany, and Sansa are all in dire straits, and a cat's whisker of dying or being tortured. One of the few bright moments was Tyrion walking into the throne room and chastising Joffrey while saving Sansa.
Yes.
P.S. 4 fewer fingernails to clean.
Anna Pankey? Punk?
Good question.
Just
let us know how to pronounce your name, Anna.
Yes, I would like to know. Just listened to episode 52. Just wanted to let you know there's another German listener. I'm from Cologne, and my friend who recommended your podcast is from Munich. Yay!
Germany.
Germany.
What's up, guys? Thanks for listening. And thanks for writing in. Always good to hear where you guys are listening from.
And that's fun.
Yeah.
I like Germany too. I've been there a few times. I like it.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
I want to go. I've never I've been to the airport in Frankfurt. I think it doesn't really count, unfortunately.
Yeah. I sang in Germany. I sang in Heidelberg and Dinkelsbühl. So
whoa.
That was
nice.
fun. I sang all over Europe out of high school. So that was just
cool.
2 of the places that we went. But yeah, it was fun.
Nice. Yeah, I got to get over there sometime.
Good beer.
Oh, that's true. Jennifer Weir says, so many good scenes in this episode. These were ones that I liked. Love it when Tyrion comes to Sansa's rescue and Bronn's analysis of Joffrey. There's no cure for being a cunt. And he's got nothing to do all day except pick wings off flies. Such a great description of Joffrey.
Agreed.
Yeah, feels so nostalgic to see the start of Arya chanting her list and adding names like Polliver and the Mountain. Renly on Melisandre's description of Stannis, born amidst salt and smoke. Is he a ham? Renly says. That cracked me up. That was so funny, man. If nothing else, Renly is hilarious.
Yeah.
Tyrion playing with Lancel and threatening him. Love, love, love Tyrion. And Stannis telling Davos, fewer. Yes, I'll never get tired of Stannis' grammar lessons.
Never. Totally
Never.
agree. Lori Himsel Kane says, how did I ever make it past this episode? Joffrey's sadism was awful to watch. The rat torture made me wince. And then the demon birth? The show is effed up. And amazing. They also have a lot of apples. One of Joffrey's ladies, Renly and Catelyn, had bowls of them. The fall of man, predicting their death. Just another autumn fruit. Winter is coming, my people.
Ooh.
Yeah, and Polliver, I believe it was Polliver, or the tickler, was eating a pear.
Oh, I didn't even notice. Or I didn't notice the apples either. That's a good call, though.
There's a lot of fruit, and I think pears and apples are both autumn fruit, so that's a nice catch.
Yeah, and in the their autumn lasts for like years, right? We get the White Raven arrives in season 1 to announce that autumn is here, right? So their autumn lasts for a long ass time before winter shows up.
They're just in so much trouble for
so
winter.
Long story short, they got tons of apples.
Mm-hmm. How do you like them apples?
Yeah, I like them apples. Sarah Larkham says, this episode shows the only time we see Robb on the battlefield, he and his army attacking the Lannister army. We only saw the aftermath of the attack, and I wished we saw more of Robb on the battlefield in earlier seasons. We see Littlefinger get into Catelyn's head, using her daughters as a bargaining chip to convince her that if he gets her daughters back, then she should convince Robb to end the rebellion against the Lannisters. Yeah, Littlefinger is getting goals accomplished here.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sometimes I can't keep it back. Wendy Eppers, hello Wendy.
Hey, Wendy.
Says, there's no cure for being a cunt. One of the many, many wise words from Bronn. This one's a girl, you idiot. Tyrion controls Lancel pretty quickly.
Yeah, really quickly and easily. So many good lines. Matthew Rep says, I've gotten so used to Heifer Julius Bjornson's portrayal of the Mountain that I'm seeing Gregor in this episode and thinking he is just too skinny and needs to bulk up. I was so happy to finally see some forward momentum in Dany's story after 3 episodes of stagnation. Catelyn wants none of Littlefinger's bullshit, but it was bittersweet to see her reunited with the body of her husband. Thanks for commenting, brother. We have an email from Archmaester Rennie. Duncan and Kristen. First, I want to give my thumbs up on Kristen's comments in the last podcast about the women of Westeros, and thank her for talking about her own experiences as a woman sports fan. Although I work in academia now, yes, Duncan, I'm one of those know-it-all professors. When I was in my teens and 20s, I worked for my dad doing construction and got nothing but flack from men who didn't think I could possibly know what I was doing, which is why I identify with Arya, Brienne, Mira Reed, Yara Greyjoy, and all the fighting women of Westeros.
Solidarity, sister. Preach it.
On to the episode, which introduces 2 of this season's worst storylines. Talisa, a.k.a. Dr. Quinn of Volantis, and the ridiculousness of Karth. I'll have more to say about them in future episodes. There are also some great themes and scenes in this episode. Tyrion saving Sansa from Joffrey and saying, Lady Stark, you may just survive all of us. Words that are probably prophetic. And Littlefinger verbally sparring with Marjorie. And the great cut from Arya saying her names to the confrontation between Catelyn and Littlefinger. Arya adding Polliver and the Mountain to her list. Tyrion suborning Lancel, and of course, the birth of the Shadow Baby. That's interesting. I've never seen that word, suborning, before. And as a professor of English, I have to love Stannis correcting less to fewer. Archmaester Rennie. Thanks, Rennie. Always good to hear from you.
Very, very much so. And thank you. Yeah, I feel you on the on having to do a little extra because you're a girl.
Yeah, I can only imagine it, but I feel your pain.
Did you do this on purpose?
No, I didn't.
You know what I'm saying.
Yeah. I do. And also, thank you, my new English professor, for teaching me the new word suborning, which I was not familiar with. So thanks.
Yay. So this next one is from Sarah Pete of Longwood, who apparently I say all of your emails every week.
I think I did last week, actually. But
did you? Okay. I'll have to go back and check. Hey, guys. I read somewhere that in George's original draft, Illyrio Mopatis, was a character named Illyrio. Gosh, I'm telling you, I'm not good with the words today.
It happens.
Tom Wopat, a wealthy merchant from the free city of...
Dem Duke boys.
Really? Dem Duke boys far to the south. Tom Wopat would ride into town in a bright orange chariot he called the General. No one knew how he got so rich or even what he sold, since he was only ever seen jumping his chariot over Slaver's Bay or caterwauling while blowing through town. His chariot was said to be enchanted with magical properties that made it able to jump absurd distances without shattering the axles. This magic seemed to work as long as Illyrio never used the doors. He was wanted in most cities for leaving piles of mangled horses wherever he recklessly jumped over this river or that. But George's editors had him rewrite the character to be more fat and less rednecky. Do you guys know if this is true? You are my favorite Game of Thrones podcast. Love, Sir Pete of Longwood, Breaker of Wind, Smoker of the Dank, the Somewhat Burnt.
he's not the unburnt. He's the somewhat burnt. you know, Sir Pete, I don't think I've heard this theory before. Illyrio, Tomwell, dem Duke boys. Yeah, this is new for me. I'm gonna have to look into that
Dem
one for
Duke
sure.
Boys.
Yep.
Oh, you know, I was just thinking. I wonder if he had a girlfriend that wore really short shorts.
What?
Like Daisy Dukes.
Oh yeah, maybe.
And we have Patrick.
Yeah, yeah. You want to announce it?
No, go ahead. I'm sorry. I got excited.
Next, we have voicemails from Sir Patrick of Hindsight.
Hi guys, it's your friend Patrick. Did not have too much to say about the What Is Dead May Never Die. A few points here and there, but I didn't feel it was worth calling in. But also my HBO Now ran out, so I gotta get that back so I can rewatch with you. But anyway, just about the recent show that you just put out, I loved your co-host's point about the difference between Baelish and Littlefinger with the voice, and I just wanted to add a little bit to it. I've noticed, a common trait for manipulative psychopaths is that their entire persona can just switch, like, in a blink, and their voice, like, cadence and tone and everything just changes all of a sudden as they become this different person. And what I think is interesting, and what really tells you that it's deliberate on the actor's behalf, is the fact that he chose a mockingbird as his sigil. Mockingbirds are the mimics of the bird world. Don't really have a voice of their own, they just imitate other birds. And it's sort of their survival mechanism. I think Baelish fancies himself as a clever man, and that was definitely deliberate. So, just wanted to throw that out there. Love the show. You guys are doing a great job. Looking forward to more.
Thanks, Patrick. Great point.
Hey, Patrick.
Yeah, that was a good point, too.
Hi, it's your friend Patrick again, and boy, I spoke too soon with my last message. I did not realize having my subscription ran out. As I said, I only got to watch half the episode. Didn't realize this is the one where Mr. Varys talks to Tyrion about power and shadows on the wall and all that. And I just really wanted to point out about when he says this, then Tyrion takes a long, oblivious sip from his wine. As Varys, you only see the face for like a microsecond, but Varys gives this dirty, sly smile, like, yeah, I've got you in my... he's got him wrapped around his finger, and Tyrion just doesn't realize. So, yeah, at this point at least, you can tell that he's definitely playing Tyrion. And another point that's sort of tangentially related, speaking of Pycelle, have you seen the deleted scene between Pycelle and Tywin?
No.
Where he reveals that he's not the blithering idiot that he pretends to be, and he gives
Where is
this
that
analogy
scene?
about the poppies that grow the tallest are the ones that get cut down, and he basically saying that he doesn't want to stand out as somebody who has the ability to manipulate.
There's the payoff.
Yeah, I just felt that significant, and there's sort of an analog to be drawn here between Pycelle and Varys. Interesting that this episode sort of conflates Varys, Littlefinger, and Pycelle together, because, yeah, they're all sort of the same character to different degrees. And I believe that Varys is, to the strongest degree, that guy. And I could go on for a very long time.
He's lasted the
about that,
longest, too.
I will just leave it at that. So, yeah. Again, love the show. Great job.
I am going to go look for that deleted scene like as soon as we're off. And
Yeah.
Patrick, I disagree with you about Varys, but we discussed that, or I yelled at you last week, so.
We're going to have to go back and look to see if we can find that sly look on Varys' face, too.
I'm going to do that too tonight.
Yeah. But yeah, that scene between Pycelle and Tywin, I was unaware of that. And that's important, too, because that's the payoff to the scene with him acting all limber.
Yeah,
After,
I wonder why that would be
Roz left. Yeah.
Deleted.
Probably, maybe just because there was no bigger payoff. Like, it never ended up really going anywhere. So I watched the deleted scene, and it is pretty important because Pycelle coming clean to Tywin about how he's not really an old crotchety dude. I mean, he is old, but he's not super crotchety. That plays a part in Tywin putting him back on the small council. So that is pretty important for the way his story plays out. Back to the show. Yeah, I don't know. We'll have to find it, though, because that's really cool. I didn't know they existed. And it adds a little bit more to that sneaky dynamic of Pycelle, so I'm into that. That's really cool.
Yeah, I love that.
It's
so exciting.
Yeah.
Thanks, Patrick.
Thanks, Patrick.
Keep those voicemails coming.
Yeah, he's got really good insight.
Only if you're nice to us, though.
All right, that's our show, episode 56. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. And thank you, as always, to Lisa Moreno and Laura Willie Swing for gathering our news and Ravens calls.
Yeah. Next week, we'll be covering Season 2, Episode 5, The Ghost of Harrenhal. Give it a watch and send us your thoughts. We'd love to read them on air.
And don't forget that you can also leave us little notes and ratings if you'd like, either on our Facebook page or our iTunes page. The more reviews and ratings that we get, the better we can be seen and more ears we can fill with Game of Thrones knowledge.
Yes, we'd really appreciate any reviews you guys would like to give us. Thank you.
Thank you for the reviews that we got this week too. We got a couple, and
oh, we did.
Well, I got a few notifications that said that we got some ratings, and I think we got like 1 or 2 reviews. So thank you.
That's great. Thank you very much. I forgot to check, but we'll read them on air next week. Share them with everybody too. If you'd like, you can always call us at 813-563-3739. That's 813-JOFFREY.
Sadist. If you'd like if you'd like to write in, you can email us at game@podcastica.com.
Check out our Facebook page at facebook.com/GOM podcast.
And be sure to check out the other great podcasts at podcastica.com.
Indeed.
That's our show.
Thanks for listening, everybody. The Lord of Light only wants you to work in the shadows.
Shadows cannot live in the dark, Sir Davos. They are servants of light. Merry Christmas! Diddle-a-doo, diddle-a-doo, diddle-a-doo.
Instead of placenta or water breaking, you get like this gaseous burst of black mist that comes out and like disperses throughout the air, and you can just see the horror on his face as he's like, what the fuck is happening? And these like gnarly like clawing fingers come out and grab her legs as the shadow demon wrenches itself from her womb. Like, how insane is that?
I'm the richest man in the world now, bitch.
Ooh.
Yeah, and every time you see him, you're just kind of like, hey, it's Buffalo Bill.
It's Buffalo Bill. It puts the fucking lotion on its skin or else it gets the hose again. It puts the fucking lotion in the basket. Ooh.